Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter. I have rebuilt the OS here, so I'm going to give things a second and just make sure everyone can hear me, make sure everything's working right. So if I could just get... It does appear to be a video issue, so... All right, let's try that one more time. There we go. I think I got the problem down there. I apologize for that. We should be good. Vox is supposed to be here, but unfortunately has not yet been able to make it. But in an effort to try to be sort of on time, we are moving forward. So once again, let me just, I'm going to make sure that we actually have audio. So if everyone could let me know. Yes, the Doritos. All right, looks like we have audio. Looks like we're good to go. This is going to be covering some extraordinarily unique... Yeah, I know unique's a binary phrase, but nonetheless, some rather unique things that have been going on in the U.S. government over the last basically 36 hours. However, there's no way we could do a news update without covering coronavirus. I will attempt to cover it quickly, and I will just go from there. Unfortunately, it seems like we are at a tipping point in multiple areas. Coronavirus is one, the presidential election is another. So let's start with coronavirus, which has always been rather serious and appears to at this point just be getting much more so. U.S. hospitalizations have reached a record high of 61,964 people, with a record of 139,000 new infections in a single day yesterday. This represents a growth of 70% over the last 14 days. The number of people hospitalized for COVID is now twice what it was in September, and medical facilities across the country are coming under unprecedented stress. The University Medical Center of El Paso has set up tents in the parking lot to deal with patients. The the convention center in El Paso County has been converted into a field hospital, and intensive care patients are now being flown to other cities and other states. 6 mobile morgues have become overwhelmed, and El Paso County is requesting 4 more to keep up with the demand. North Dakota has invoked a CDC guideline for severe staff shortages and has now declared that health workers who have tested positive may continue to work. Despite the positive test, may continue to work so long as they are able, but only in treating other COVID-19 patients. Testing sites in Wisconsin are being shut down to redirect staff and nurses to treatment. The Utah Governor Gary Herbert has said that the state has essentially nearly reached its medical capacity. He's declared a state of emergency and a statewide mandate for masks, saying, quote, the reality is, quote, that we are at the brink of not being able to take any more people in the hospitals. Governor Kim Reynolds of Iowa, who previously called masks a, quote, feel-good action, and has not only refused statewide restrictions, but also blocked individual municipalities from enforcing their own standards in Iowa, has for the first time announced a new statewide restrictions and mask requirements. Director of the the director for the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota has said it will not surprise me if in the next weeks we see over 200,000 new cases every day. That's 1 million cases in the United States every 5 days. This is concerning because medical facilities are already nearing capacity in the nation, and it takes roughly 2 weeks for new cases to reach the point at which they need to be hospitalized, and another 2 weeks before they die, meaning that we can anticipate as much as a 70% spike in hospitalizations in the next 10 to 12 days, followed by another one roughly 2 weeks after that in deaths. So that's it. I think there's we did have a bit more. We're going to try to stay out of the COVID stuff as much as possible, but there is no way that we are going to be able to This episode is for what's going on in the U.S. government, but we felt compelled to cover it. I think we're at a tipping point, and multiple states are going to need to lock down significantly in the coming weeks, I suspect. All right, please hold one. All right. Meanwhile, the New York Times has called top election officials from both parties in every state in the union, and has reported as of today that not a single elected official has said that there were irregularities in the vote sufficient enough to affect the outcome. At this point, every major news outlet in the United States has called the election for Biden. Most countries have reached the conclusion that Biden has won, and many international leaders have been congratulating Biden on his win. Nonetheless, Donald Trump refuses to acknowledge that Biden has won, refuses to move forward with it, and is making a number of moves and overtures that suggest that he truly believes he will be in office next year. A lot of these are very concerning, and from the outside, it looks a bit. Oh, and I apologize. I think we do have Vox. I just maybe noticed her coming in, so let me add her here. Vox, how are you?
Hello. I apologize for being a little late.
That is all right. We covered the COVID stuff, and I think that was wanted to go over that quickly. So I'm mostly, I think.
I'd like to point out that, remember, they said as soon as Joe Biden won, COVID was going to disappear, right? It's just going to disappear.
Well, and now Biden's going to have his hands full with COVID because his transition team is unable to function, and so that's going to inhibit his COVID response. He can't even start his COVID response now, probably until January is what it looks like. But we will get to that. And I think so. You and I have been speaking a bit about what's going on, and this strikes me as and I've just started this. This strikes me as really unprecedented. The level to which the Republicans appear to be clinging to the fact that Trump will still be in office in one way or another, and some of this is very disturbing. So the New York Times again has said that after having called election officials, and let me do a quick rundown of what the number of election officials have said according to the New York Times. The Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose has said that, quote, there is great human capacity for inventing things that aren't true about elections, and has recertified that the Ohio election is valid and went off without any significant cases of fraud. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simons said, I don't know of a single case where somebody argued that a vote counted when it shouldn't have or didn't count when it should have. There was no fraud. Kansas Secretary of State Scott Schwab said, Kansas did not experience any widespread systemic issues with voter fraud, intimidation, irregularities, or voting problems. Nonetheless, the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has claimed on Saturday that the Pennsylvania election was rife with fraud. However, the office of the Pennsylvania Attorney General has said, quote, any claims against the Commonwealth have already been dismissed, and repeating these false attacks is reckless. No lawsuit even alleges, and no evidence has been presented thus far that there have been any widespread problems. The office of Joyce Benson, Secretary of State for Michigan, has also said, we have not seen any evidence of fraud or foul play in the actual administration of the election. But despite that, Trump continues to cast doubt on the election results, and his media campaign appears successful, with one poll by Politico finding that 70% of Republicans now believe that the election may have been stolen. So the rhetoric has become so bad that in Georgia, 2 Republican senators have called for the resignation of the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who is also a Republican and who has said that there was no voter fraud in Georgia, and they have called for his resignation for failure to deliver honest and transparent elections. Now, that's sort of what brought us to about 36 hours ago. 36 hours ago, Donald Trump fired Secretary of Defense Esper. Did this on Monday. And subsequently either fired or resigned the top Pentagon policy official, the top Defense Department intelligence official, the chief of staff for the Defense Secretary, and several others we will get into. But what's interesting about this is that shortly before he was fired, Esper gave an interview at Military Times and said he believed he was going to be fired, and said, quote, "Who is going to come in behind me? It's going to be a real yes man, and God help us." That is at the time, Secretary of Defense saying, "God help us," based on who he thought his replacement would be. Now, he seemed to think that this was going to be a yes man, somebody who would do whatever he was told. And this begs the question, why was Esper fired? Now, there had been tension, but it suggests that Trump asked him to do something. He said no and was fired. Now, as the Secretary of Defense, he is very limited in the number of ways in which he can say no to the President of the United States. The only 2 are if it violates the law or if it violates the Constitution. So the question is, what was he asked that he said no? So we're going to get into some possibilities, but Vox, do you have any ideas or speculation? This is purely speculative, but we're going to try to combine a number of facts that we've seen here. But any thoughts on, or at least this is my interpretation of the firing. Maybe you have a different one. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that what we know above all else about Donald Trump is that he values loyalty over competence. Right. The majority of the people that he has fired in cabinet positions, which, by the way, he has fired so many people, it's because they've been perceived to be disloyal to him. So Esper, there's a perception that he's been disloyal to him in some of the interviews that he's given, some of the policies and the policies that he's pushed. Remember that Donald Trump gave the trans order, and then after the law, after that thing was kind of reversed in the courts, they were like, oh, well, we're going to stop doing this. And so there's been a lot of like little things. So so when I first saw this, I kind of was very, very suspicious of it. I'm thinking, is there something going to pop off with Iran in the next 30 days? Is there something that he's going to do domestically? I've kind of quieted myself down just a little bit at this point. I think
welcome to the show. That's going to change.
I think this is mostly just retributive. I think Trump is saying, you're the reason that this happened. You're the reason that because remember, Trump wanted to send in the army to quell the protests, and Esper said no. He said no. So I think that this is mostly, I think we're going to see a lot of this, and actually is just Donald Trump lashing out at people that he is perceived to have failed him in his bid for the White House. Because obviously Donald Trump losing was not Donald Trump's fault. There's nothing wrong with Donald Trump.
That's obvious, yes.
Yeah. And I think that basically a lot of the resignations, and this is where, we could speculate a little bit. So firing the top guy, really generally speaking, doesn't have much impact. It's when you see the people that actually run the show, the undersecretaries and the policy wonks and things like that, when you see them start resigning en masse, that's when you start to wonder, is there something more to this? Because when like when undersecretaries resign, that's when the work stops, right? Because they're the ones actually doing the work. And so we've had an undersecretary resign. We've had the
We've
top
had
cop at
several
the election.
undersecretaries resign as of
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's the thing that really raised my eyes, right? Because these are non-partisan lifetime government workers, right? They work under Republicans and Democrats and they just do their jobs. So a part of it I think is just retributive, but part of it is, maybe these undersecretaries obviously know more than we do, and maybe they're saying, well, if I resign, that slows him from being able to do whatever the heck he's trying to do.
Yeah, I think I like that interpretation. I hope that's correct. The several ones that I've heard is, one, it's all retributive. He's pissed, and so he's lashing out at people. I'm somewhat disinclined towards that one, because while I do think that's him, there are other signs that he genuinely thinks he's going to be in power by the end of January next year. There are genuine signs. So either he's in denial, I don't know what's going on, but this is concerning when taking the whole all of what's been happening. The other one is that he wants to reverse course in Afghanistan, and these are the people who have interfered in his ability to do that. And two, that three, I guess. So the first would be it's retributive. Two, he wants to reverse Afghanistan. Three, he wants to redo his policy for putting the U.S. military into cities that are having riots and protests, and try to quell protests through the military. And so he's removing people who are obstructing that. And four, that he's actually going to try to forcibly stay in power, which is stunning to suggest in the U.S., but I'm not the first one to suggest it. So, yeah. So what the acting undersecretary for defense policy, James Anderson, was also fired. Now, at first it was reported that he quit, but it turns out he's been fired. He was being given, Bill Kristol has reported that as he was being given a clap out, as he was leaving the building, the White House, actually shortly after the clap out, requested from the DOD the names of any political appointees who joined in clapping him out so that they could be fired. Retired Navy Vice Admiral Joseph Kernan, who's also the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, has left his position. The Defense Secretary Chief of Staff is also out. Kind of sometimes makes sense when you lose the secretary, but and Trump allies are now suggesting that they expect a firing of the CIA Director Gina Haspel and the FBI Director Christopher Wray shortly before the end of the week.
So if I could just jump in here real quick.
Please.
The scary part about all this is that let's just appear the better angels and just like Trump is just doing this because he's mad at everybody.
Yes.
He is leaving America vulnerable. Firing the CIA director, the Secretary of Defense, screwing around with the Department of State, and you're just inviting attacks on American soil. Because our systems only work when the leadership is functioning properly. So you're just it would not surprise me with this amount of firing if we see evil fucking people take advantage of this.
I think that's a spectacular point. That's not one that I normally jump to, but is a huge one that's been mentioned by multiple high-ranking members of the Department of Defense, and what they've said is that he is irrefutably making America weaker, because on top of undermining the transition process, our enemies know that we are now fighting amongst ourselves, and they know that there's vulnerabilities, and they know that there's open positions at the highest levels of intelligence. We're going to get to the NSA in a minute, because we're not done. So, and that this is in fact inviting attack. I was like, yeah, sure. Nope, you got it. You called it, Fox, because that's a concern, and that's one of the biggest concerns being levied right now. And I think that's an excellent point. I think I don't like it because I tend to see arguments like that as disingenuous. It's a little bit like, oh, think of the children. You know what I mean? It's just like, but in this case, I think you're right. I think you got an excellent point, and I think,
and
yeah,
he's leaving us blind, because
yes,
and again, it's not just the top. It's one thing to fire a cabinet member. It's another thing to fire undersecretaries and then the bureaucrats at work, because that's what leaves us blind. Because those are the people that know where the paperwork is, they know where the information is, right? Because these things are like there's a reason our intelligence apparatus is compartmentalized, and when you
yes.
take away the people that have the keys to the compartments, you're just blind. So,
Well, and we're replacing them and replacing how we do also, because we talked before about the presidential daily briefings, which currently is being denied Biden, which is also unprecedented. Usually they give them actually early, and oftentimes they actually start when each party gets a nominee. They usually start getting a light version of the presidential daily briefing at that point, because one of those nominees is going to be president, and they want them to be able to come in and hit the ground running and know all of our intelligence secrets. No, Hillary Clinton was getting it. Trump was getting it when they were both running to replace Obama. They started getting it at that point. Biden has not yet been getting his. Yeah. Trump has moved also to make Michael Ellis the general counsel of the National Security Agency. Michael Ellis is a Trump loyalist. He is on the House Intelligence Committee and is described as, and this gets to what you were saying about loyalty over anything else. He has been described as the single most loyal to Trump, loyal member of the Intelligence Committee, and one of the most loyal people in Congress to Trump. He has been now that nomination can still be fought, but Trump is pushing hard to get Michael Ellis in as the general counsel. This has been done over the explicit objections of General Paul Nascone, who is the director of the NSA. And one former member of the NSA has said, quote, "It's about burrowing Trump loyalists into suspected deep state agencies. This is consistent with Trump's ongoing effort to hold on to power by making sure that no institution can be used to deny his grip." Now, if the NSA ends up in a legal situation against Trump, it's the general counsel that you are going to want to have control over. And I find the fact that before even removing the director of the NSA, he is putting a Trump loyalist into the NSA's general counsel, very concerning. John Brennan, who most of you will remember is a former director of the CIA, said, quote, "I think there's a lot that's going to happen over the next 75 days as Trump carries out vendettas, settles scores, and tries to position himself for his next act. He is totally undisciplined and an unethical individual. I don't trust anything is beyond him," and that is a very scary thing to say.
yeah, I don't
yes.
know. I don't know what to like at this point. This is the kind of stuff we read about in history books about Weimar and places in the banana republic, so to speak, right?
Yes.
And we were raised to have this idea that this kind of stuff, it's not that it didn't happen, it's that it could not happen. So the fact that it is happening shows us that our system is not as robust and strong when it relates to blatant corruption as we thought it was. One of the things that I really hope that the Republicans and the Democrats can do once Joe Biden assumes this presidency is to strengthen these things, to make sure that these people cannot just be fired out of whim and things like that. There should be a reason. Like if I understand that they all serve at the pleasure of the president, but when you can just pell-mell do whatever you want in these independent agencies, the fact that there's no checks and balances there is just mind-blowing to me.
Well, that's why the CDC has been hobbled and why nobody can trust the information out of the CDC right now. You cannot trust the information out of the CDC right now. And I don't think that's because there's any bad people there. I think it's because there are people there who have to feed their families and who are aware that if the information doesn't go with the Trump agenda, they are out of a job. But it's the CDC is, and it's I agree. The downside is the general counsel of the National Security Agency is a position that once it's filled, you cannot be fired simply for any political reasons. So Mike Ellis, that's a permanent position. If he gets it, he can be removed, or so he can be moved to another position. Street sweeper, I don't know. But he's once he's in, he's a loyalist, and he can say it's bizarre. It seems very mixed. What can stay in and what can't. So the House Armed Services Chairman, Adam Smith, has said, quote, "It's hard to overstate just how dangerous high-level turnover at the Department of Defense is during a period of presidential transition. The top policy professional in the department resigning the day after the Secretary of Defense was fired could mark the beginning of a process of gutting the Department of Defense, something that should alarm all Americans." So this is echoing what you said earlier. Emily Murphy, director of the General Services. Well, actually, no. Let me get to that in a second. All right. So no, that's the firings. That's the firings, and then I want to speak to sort of the general tone that concerns me aside from this. But I think you brought up a really good point, which is it's very hard to see this as a genuine attempt to hold on to power. And the reason is because that doesn't happen in the U.S. At least that's where my mind goes to. That happens in banana republics. That happens everywhere else, not in the U.S. On the flip side, if I saw this happening in any other country, if I saw this happening in the UK, France, Germany, any other industrialized country, I'd say, holy shit, guys, guess what that is? That's an attempted coup. That's what I'd be saying.
I do think that, we do have enough. I mean, look, I think that we're going to see Trump. He's going to go down to Mar-a-Lago and he's just never going to come back. All right, now that's what I think is going to happen. Having said that, I do not think that Trump has the support necessary in order to do a coup. But the fact that he can come anywhere near having the power to have a coup is disturbing as an American citizen. It's absolutely disturbing to me. Fortunately, I have calmed myself again with wonderful images of the Secret Service tossing that fat man out on his ass. And by the way, I know that Anderson Cooper got in trouble for calling Donald Trump a obese turtle flailing around on its back in the sun, and I think rightly so. But I'm not Anderson Cooper, so fuck that morbidly obese bastard. Get him out as fast as fucking possible. January 20th cannot come fast enough.
I think Biden has said, the Secret Service is very good at removing unwanted guests from the White House. But here's where I get concerned. So we have all the actions of the firings and the people that have been replaced, and we don't know how to interpret it. We don't know what's going on in his mind. It could be revenge. I think is absolutely within it. It's just like you're fired. You're fired. This wasn't my fault. I'm firing everybody who's burning down the house.
Fired.
Burning down the house so that when Biden gets there, there's nothing there. There's all sorts of things, but the reason I'm concerned, I do think he's a little unhinged. I'm not convinced that, at least in his mind, trying to hold on to power beyond January of next year is that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not sure he sees anything wrong with that. And so far, a number of Republicans have not. There's been some people condemning this, but not a lot. And to get into a few now, the Secretary of State. This is the United States Secretary of State. Mike Pompeo was asked about was asked about would they allow the transition team to do their work, which hasn't started. The transition team has been denied access. When he was asked about this, he said that there will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. This is the Secretary of State. Now, I understand the few people like Mitch McConnell who have said, I don't like it, but I do understand saying, hey, the election's not yet decided. Because technically, until the results are certified, until the Electoral College has voted, they are correct. So on technical grounds, they are correct. Now, traditionally, by this point, the transition starts. There's no indication that it's not going to be Biden. There's every indication that it will be. And
so this is what I think that is going on in the Trump White House right now.
Yes.
Is a whole lot of scenarioing, right? They're saying, okay, well, technically, the American people don't elect the president. Technically, electors elect the president. So technically, those electors could give Trump the White House, even though the states that hold the electors have said that, you know, these. So yes, it is all still possible that Donald Trump could retain. Now, if it happened, that's the end of America. It is. It's over. When a group of unelected people can reverse the will of the citizens of this country, America as a country has ended, and we all just might as well pack up our balls and go home. But I think that's what's going on over there. They're saying, well, no, nothing has been certified. Well, we can do this thing with the electors. Well, we're going to sue these, and as you pointed rightfully so, and this is what, there have not been any challenges to votes. Every single lawsuit has been a process lawsuit, right? And what we mean by a process suit, right, is it's a suit about the way in which the things are happening, as opposed to whether or not the thing itself is illegal. So the lawsuits being brought up, say in Pennsylvania, right, they're not claiming that the votes are fraudulent. They're claiming that the process by which the votes were counted is fraudulent, which is the same thing that they are saying in Nevada, in Arizona, in Wisconsin, and places like that. Like, that's what they're saying, right? Which shows you that they know. They know. And by the way, if you look at the attorneys, right, this was pointed out. No, there's no A-list attorneys, right? Like conservative, intellectual, legal minds
Giuliani
are not touching this with a 10-foot pole, right?
Giuliani's on the case.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I understand what you say at the outset, but just trigger warning. They haven't sent in the Jews, right? They haven't sent in the Jews. Until they send in the Jews, right?
Okay. Okay.
The Leibowitzes and the Kolowaskis and the things like that. Look, the big name attorney, right? They haven't sent them in, right? And so we've got Giuliani, right? This is what we've got. We got Giuliani.
We got Giuliani,
who is holding a press
crazy.
Conference in a landscaping parking lot next to a dildo shop, right? This is.
I didn't know that part. Okay, that was salient.
Okay, so yeah, and so look, there's this wonderful idea going on. This is how, so you've got this. How did it start? Donald Trump starts descending on an escalator, like a golden escalator, with his wife waving and everything, and that's how it started. How did it end? It's ending with Rudy Giuliani in a parking lot of a basically defunct agricultural business, giving a press conference about how they're going to stay in power and subvert the rule of law next to an adult bookstore. And that's how it ends. If you need a better metaphor for the incompetence of the Trump White House, if you need a better metaphor for the incompetence of the Trump administration from the top down, there is nothing better than Giuliani giving a press conference about subverting the rule of law in in a parking lot next to an adult bookstore.
Well, so this brings up an excellent point, because on September 23rd, we did a show. Actually, I think we did a show the next day on The Atlantic, which was reporting that campaign insiders had said that there was a plan going on that if he did lose the election, they would go to governors and directly get those governors to assign electors, instead of assigning electors based on the vote, which not in many states they're not required to do that. Governors assign the electors that belong to the state. The way in many states, the way they choose, they just go with the vote. The plan was, according to the Atlantic magazine, September 23rd, the plan that the Trump campaign has been preparing has been to go to governors and say, we should be president, not Biden. Do what's best for the country, and give your electors to the Republican Party. The Republican Party then sends them to gives them to people who will vote for Trump, and then unless you have faithless electors, Trump wins. That's a complicated process. I saw some things about faithless electors. I'm not as worried about faithless electors. I'm worried about faithless governors who don't honor the vote and give the electors to Trump anyway. And it looks like, that's what Trump was planning. There was the Atlantic article on that is spectacular. I recommend people go see it. But right now, NBC News is saying that there is, in fact, a plan by the Trump administration to do just that. Forbes has actually, it was started with Forbes saying that Trump is essentially initiating that plan, and NBC News has said that yes, Trump is now going to attempt to turn the electors over. But in his mind, and I think you're right. I think that's a spectacular, because now even like Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but followed the process with the electors, maintained faith with the system and how it's supposed to work, and gave up her bid for the White House. She didn't contest it. She didn't do anything. Now he's won the popular vote. He's going to win the Electoral College, and Trump is, it looks like, going to try to go around it. The several things that, in my mind, are most concerning. One, the director of the General Services Administration, who is in charge of the transition, has refused to give a certification that Biden is entitled to start the transition process. So Biden has no access to any transition resources, no funding, doesn't have access to. There's a building that's actually next to the White House. They move into that building to prepare to move into the White House, and then they just, on election day, they basically move. They just transition from one building to another. Isn't getting the presidential daily briefings. Is completely locked out of the entire process. The American embassies have been instructed not to discuss anything other than a Trump presidency, and many embassy officials have said that they have been told not to assist Biden in engaging with any foreign leaders who wish to congratulate him. And diplomats are saying that they won't even discuss the Trump administration for fear of accidentally describing it in the past tense and getting fired.
This is insane. And
yeah.
The thing is that once you like let's say Donald Trump succeeded in turning the election to the electors, it's Pandora's box. Once you do it, you cannot take that back, right? It's look, then this is what Mitch McConnell is going to have to deal with, right? So Mitch McConnell has to deal with the fact that he bucked the process of Supreme Court justices and did whatever the heck he wants to do. He can't undo that now, right? The same thing, it will be true of this. If Donald Trump does this, and by the way, I don't think he would succeed. Right, let me put that out there. I don't think I fully expect to have Joe Biden installed as the president of the United States on January 20th. But if he tries this, you can't undo that once you've done it, which means that the other side can do it too. Right?
Yes.
And so the short-term things, and what this is, right? What this is a generation of people who are desperately trying to cling on to the last vestiges of power that they can amass before they croak. I mean, look at the age of these things. The majority of these people are septuagenarians, right?
Mm.
And look, I love old people, right? We all love our grandmas and our grandpas, but they have different ideas than we do. And so this is septuagenarians trying to hold on to power for as long as they possibly can. So they're not thinking about the long term. They're not thinking
Yep.
about
Yep.
what's good for America in 100 years. What's good for America in 200 years. What's the process going to look like? They're not thinking about anything of that. They are solely and totally thinking about two things: their own power and Donald Trump's power. The fact that people like Ted Cruz and Louis Gohmert and you know the just the leadership of the Republican Party have come out and not condemned this but supported it
Yes.
is embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and it's sad because what they're basically doing is you've got all the people that are not currently employed saying, "Oh my God, this is so bad, this is so horrible," right? And then you've got all the people that are employed saying, no, oil Trump, right? And so these people, their morals and their principles don't exist, right? The next time Republicans want to argue values and morals to me, you can piss off with that. You can,
Oh.
because you have no morals, you have no principles. The only thing you have is your feelings and clinging to power.
I to tell you the truth, I don't even know. I completely agree with that sentiment. The religious right, after saying values matter with Clinton, and then speaking in a loud, unified voice saying, "Nope, values don't matter anymore" with Trump. Now, what bothers me is that I'm really bothered by that hypocrisy, and so few members of this country seem to be bothered by it that we actually had a reasonably close election. I mean, I just don't.
Well, Democrats are bothered by hypocrisy, right? Look at every single Democratic primary for the last, say, 16 years, right? Since Bill Clinton, right? We want to be viewed as bipartisan. We don't want any smell of hypocrisy. So we eat our own every 4 years. Right, every 4 years we eat our own. You're not pure enough. You're not perfect enough. You're not. And what do we get? We get Joe Biden. Well, we could have had anybody else. We got Joe Biden. And look, I'm not saying that I'm not happy that Joe Biden won or anything, but Democrats care about hypocrisy, about looking hypocritical, about looking partisan. Republicans at this point, they don't care. They don't care what you think about them. They don't care how you view them. Only thing they care about is themselves. They don't even care about the people that vote for them. They just care about themselves.
I'm trying not to become that cynical, but I'm failing. All right. Well, I think. Thank you, Vox, for joining us. I think I do think that this merits further discussion. I think for now we're just gonna. I just wanted to sort of hit the highlights of it. And I do want to ask you, but to sort of just do the basic rundown. So what we now have is a number of firings and resignation at the secretary and undersecretary levels in the Department of Defense. At least one replacement or one new person in the NSA. We have what appears to be what looks like is going to be the firing of CIA director and FBI directors within the next couple of days. Massive overhaul. And by the way, this is the other thing, which is normally you do this when you come into the administration and you replace it with your own people, not as you're leaving. I mean, he's replacing people as he's leaving. So we also seem to have a Republican Party largely in denial, both that he lost, at least publicly in denial about it, and in denial about the fact that he's trying to end run around the system and stay in, despite by every measure he's lost the electoral college and he's lost. And the Republicans appear to be in complete denial about it, up to the point of the Secretary of State outright saying, not even saying, well, it's possible Trump could still win, not saying there are paths to victory, but outright saying, yep, there's going to be a smooth transition to Trump's second term. It's just not even questioning. This is the Secretary of State for the United States denying the election even happened. and that there were any. Holy shit! So there is, from multiple sources, a lot of growing fear in the Department of Justice that it's being weaponized. Department of Defense, that it is being weaponized. That Trump may try to use the Insurrection Act to place, and this is what we said earlier. That one of the theories is that he wants to put troops back into U.S. cities. He tried that once, didn't go very well. He wants to do it again, but the Department of Defense has been against the use of the Insurrection Act to allow him to do that. He's maybe also trying to overrule the military advice that he was given about Afghanistan, or maybe this is just vengeance. Who knows? But I think it's going to be a very interesting week, and
A very deadly week.
Yeah, for if you work in Washington. I think a great many people are concerned in a way nobody thought you could be concerned in this country. What appears to be a genuine effort by the President of the United States to stay past what is a loss. He's lost. That's not up. It hasn't been certified yet. It will be. He's lost. Period. All right. Any other thoughts before we go?
No, I think that you've done a pretty good job of covering this today. I think that we are gonna, make sure that we continue to watch this. Everybody that's watching the show know that we are going to be continuing to watch this. I think that there's reason to be hopeful, but there's reason to be vigilant. And then, of course, also, please be safe, wear your masks, stay inside if you can, because this is going to be a very deadly month. It just is, and there's no real rhyme or reason why people shouldn't be wearing masks. So please just protect yourself, protect your family.
And that gets me, because we did have a question in the live chat about this, and I wanted to clear this up. I had said that Biden was going to be behind on COVID response. The reason is he doesn't have any other transition materials he needs, so he can't even start restoring the CDC. He can't start half the planning that he needs. He is not up to date on, he's up to date on publicly available information on COVID vaccines and trials, but he's not up to date on anything that's privileged, because he's not even getting those briefings. So his team has admitted that they're going to be hobbled in their response to COVID-19 and can't implement that for 2 months past when they anticipated, because they haven't been given access. So that's what I meant when I said the COVID response. I'm more optimistic. I think it was the Washington Post said that Trump's response, which was sort of a patchwork of, deal with it in individual states as it becomes a problem, has proven to be a catastrophic failure, and we need a national level response. I think that's Biden's view, but Biden's going to be hobbled in doing that. But I think you're right. It's going to be a bad month for COVID, as well as, we're approaching 200,000 new infections, and the death rate is already exceeding what many states can deal with, and there's going to be a spike in the death rate. We know there's going to be a spike in the death rate because there's been a spike in the infection rate, and it's 2 weeks before you have a spike in actual hospitalizations, and then 2 weeks after that so I think you're right. I think we've got a very bad month coming when it comes to that. So, and Trump is fucking around with America's foundational institutions at the same time. We're going to have on. We're going to do our show on Rorschach, which is how human beings impose their own biases onto the people that we perceive sort of are actually reflections of who are.
I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to that.
I think that's going to be great. We're going to have on Christopher Mowdy for that. We're also going to be doing music therapy. So that's going to be on the 23rd, then music therapy on the 30th. Today at 9 p.m., I'm going to be on with New Mexicans for Reason and Science. I'm going to be a featured speaker. You have to go to their website to figure out what that's going to be, but that's going to be tonight at 9 p.m. And I think that's it. Vox, do you have anything coming up that you wanted to let people know about before we...
Nope, I'm actually going to be in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, this weekend. Going gonna go. We're gonna go do something that I have wanted to do for a very long time. This is gonna sound very cheesy, but I love Dolly Parton, and so we are gonna go to Dollywood.
Oh.
So prepare yourself, Tennessee, because Fox and family are on the way.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Stay safe as you're driving. So, but thank you very much for coming on. Thank you all for joining us. Please, we will continue some of this discussion. I'll be in the Discord in a few minutes. We'll continue in the Discord. Join us on the Discord if you want to learn more about future shows, if you want to find ways to support us. The easiest way to support us, if you've watched the show and appreciate our coverage, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. If everybody watching hits the like and subscribe link, it's a great way to help us out.
Do it. Do it now.
Do it. Or Vox, I'll get Vox on your ass. You do not want me to unleash Vox like that. So, and then, yeah, so please like and subscribe. I will be in the Discord in a few minutes. Thank you all for joining us.